Good morning, ladies. Welcome to Saturday morning Bible study. I'm so excited to be here with you guys, and happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. I hope you guys are celebrating today. We've got beautiful weather. It's the perfect time to take a break from all the craziness happening in our world to just celebrate the great place where we live. So we're going to give everyone a couple minutes to log on, and then we'll get started with Bible study. See, I've got one friend watching with me. Hey, Marianne, happy Independence Day. At home all day. Yeah, let me hear what your plans are for today. I am hopefully, after we get off of, hey, Katina, after we get off of Bible study, going to my mom's to swim and have lunch and all of that good stuff. Good morning. Let's see. My internet might be being a little bit slow. Good morning, friends. All right, I don't expect a huge crowd for Bible study this morning because of the holiday, but I know we have lots of friends who will come back and watch the replay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hey, Stacy, good to see you on here this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. So let's pray and let's get into the Word, guys. All right. Oh, Lord, we love you and just praise you, God. Thank you for waking us up for another day to serve you. Lord, I'm thankful to live in America, God, for all her faults and hardships, Lord, that we've been going through. It's still the greatest country, and I'm just thankful. I'm so blessed to live here. Lord, I thank you for the ladies that have joined us this morning, joined me this morning for Bible study. God, I pray that you would speak to us, God, speak to our hearts, Lord. Help us to understand your word. Help us to grow closer to you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, I've got a few more friends joining us on here. Hey, Becky. Hey, Pam. It's good to see you guys this morning. Yes, Stacy. You know, my husband was reading a book. Joseph was reading a book this week. It's called The Insanity of God. And it's about a missionary who he couldn't even give his real name in the book. All his name had to be changed and all of that stuff. Because he has been a missionary he was a missionary to Somalia and then to China, I think. And one of the quotes Joseph read me from the book was that he was in China and they met this young lady and she was kind of on the run. I don't know. She was in danger for her life somehow. And they ended up bringing her home to the United States. And she was at a service with them, and it happened to be a baptism service. And as they were baptizing people, they said she was looking around and she started to cry. And they said, "What's going on? Are you okay? Are you scared? Like, what's happening?" She said, "I just don't understand. I don't understand why people aren't standing up and cheering that you can be baptized in public." She said, "This is a miracle. It's a miracle. And I just want to stand up and cheer and clap and shout. And I don't understand why everyone's not doing that." And Joseph read that to me, and it just really kind of put things into perspective, because we've been going through a tough time as a country over the past few months. But to know that we still have our freedom to go to church in public, to get on Facebook and do Bible study together, what a blessing. What an absolute blessing. We've got it good to be able to serve the Lord the way that we do. And so I guess it's just fitting to go right into Esther this morning, because, Esther was going through kind of a hard time where she couldn't let anybody know who she was. Excuse me. She couldn't let anybody know who she was. And I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I already choked on my coffee this morning. just have a little congestion, I guess. So she's living in this time where she couldn't let people know who she was. She didn't have the freedom that we have today. And so it's kind of fitting to wrap up the story of Esther today, I think. So we read this week chapters 7 through 10. And we had a few questions, but just to kind of summarize what's happened, in case you didn't get a chance to read, when we ended last week, it was kind of a cliffhanger. Haman had built these gallows and planned to kill Mordecai. He was going to hang Mordecai. And then he goes in to see the king, and the king tells him, I want to honor this man who saved my life, who's done all these great things for me. And Haman thinks, he's talking about me. And he says, well, Haman suggests you should throw a parade, you should put the royal robes on him, all of this stuff. And then the king says, okay, do that for Mordecai. And we talked about how Esther had already invited Haman and the king to a dinner, and she couldn't get up the courage to tell them like who she was and what she needed. But she invites them to another dinner. And this thing with Haman and the king wanting to honor Mordecai kind of comes between the two dinners. And we talked about God's timing and how God knew that King Ahasuerus needed to realize who Mordecai was and what kind of man he was before Esther presented this to the king and Haman. So that's kind of where we are right now. Hey, Jamie. Hey, Deborah. Hey, Kathy. I just saw a few people who have joined us this morning. I'm so glad you guys are here with us. I keep getting pop-ups that the Greenbrier 4th of July parade is happening. Not going. Hey, Jamie. I'm so sorry you're at work, but maybe you can catch some of it or catch it later. I love you. Miss you. So let's get started. When I made the questions this week, I kind of just went through each chapter and tried to think about a question or something to think about with each chapter. And so chapter 7 is when Esther goes before the king and Haman to tell them, what she needs, what her request is. And so my question was, it's really kind of a practical living question. It's not really getting too theological or anything, but it's just kind of talking about how the book of Esther applies to our lives and a lesson we can learn. And my question was, what do we learn from both Haman and Esther about the different ways to handle conflict? Because we see here that Esther's having a problem, and good morning, Shekinah. She goes before the king, and she presents just the way I want to read it, just the way she presents her requests. But Haman did something totally different. So I want to just kind of compare this morning. And you guys let me know in the comments what stands out to you about how Haman dealt with his problem and how Esther dealt with her problem while I get turned there. Give you a little time because I'm slow. So, let's see. We're in chapter 7, verse 3. The king asks Esther, okay, what's your request? And verse 3 says, Then Queen Esther answered, If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be granted me for my wish, and my people for my request. For we have been sold, and I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we had been sold merely as slaves, men and women, I would have been silent, for our affliction is not to be compared with the loss to the king. Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, Who is he, and where is he who has dared to do this? And Esther said, A foe and an enemy, this wicked Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Good morning, Sherry. So this is so drastically different. If we go back to what we read about Haman a couple weeks ago, a couple chapters ago. Oh, good morning, Christy. I'm so glad your surgery went well. So sorry you're sore, but that's that's good that that's the only thing going on here. So we're so excited for you that that went well. So if we go back a couple chapters and we think about Haman and his response when Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him, he didn't even really address it with Mordecai. He just immediately went into this like killing rage, you know, where he wanted to destroy everything. And Esther kind of has a totally different approach. She definitely will be praying for you, Sherry. That's scary. I can't imagine having eye surgery. That would scare me to death. But you're going to be fine. I shouldn't have said that. You're going to be fine. So Esther, she goes before the king, and she's, I don't know, the word I would use to describe her here is gentle. She goes with just a gentle spirit and says, you know, if I found favor with you, and I want, you know, it's not that if this was something small, I wouldn't have even brought it up. Something small like, oh, one person wouldn't bow down to me, you know, kind of like Haman did. So we see kind of totally two different things here. Let's see. Marianne says Haman was devious and manipulative and power-seeking, whereas Esther and Mordecai both were wise, humble, and advocates for the people above themselves. Yes, I think humble is a great word. I said gentle, and humble, I think, maybe even be better, a better descriptor there. She humbled herself. And what happened here, she got the results, much better results than Haman did. Haman was on his way there to getting his results, but he was bulldozing people along the way. But Esther was humble, and so that's a big difference that we see here. Let's see, what did I even write? I said Esther remained calm. If we're just talking about how you handle conflict, Esther remained calm. And she brought everything out in the open. That was one thing I noticed. She just told the king, this is exactly what's happening. And Haman, he was secretive. He never told the king, oh, Mordecai wouldn't bow down to me. He's made, like, wove this story of these people who are terrible. And really, that's not what was going on. So he, was manipulative. He used something that happened to him and kind of twisted it into what he thought the king would need to hear. But Esther was honest. And so if we just take that and apply it directly to our lives, what does that teach us about handling conflict? To be humble, to be patient, to be truthful, present the facts. I think it's okay to let people know this is how it affects me. You know, maybe Haman would have gotten more ground there if he had have said, this is what happens and this is why it bothers me. I still don't think he would have gotten his end result of getting everyone killed, but maybe had more peace here. So I think it's just a good lesson for us in how to handle conflict here. And so my next question, this was question number 4 on the thing that I posted, but I feel like it kind of fits in here. I think I want to go this angle before, well, forget that. Let's do question number 2, which was, how do things begin to turn around for Esther and Mordecai in chapter 8? Hey, Christy, we're at the end of Esther. So the last question I asked was about kind of in chapter 7. But the next question for question 2, how do things begin to turn around for Esther and Mordecai? This is going to be chapter 8. Chapter 8. And let's see, I started another Bible study for myself personally this week. It's a Bible study in Jeremiah, and it's got this guide that goes with it. And one of the things that it says at the very beginning, it's like a daily Bible study thing. And at the beginning of every day, you read a chapter. And then it says, what is the verse that you would choose to kind of summarize this whole chapter? And so I was thinking about that for chapter 8. Because my question was, how do things begin to turn around for Esther and Mordecai? And the verse that I chose was kind of at the end. Would be, so I'll read this verse and then you guys let me know in the comments, how do you think things are turning around for, we're in the book of Esther, Christy, book of Esther. How do you think things are turning around for Esther and Mordecai. Let's see, I'm reading, and you know what? I'll put this in the comments too. We're, just in case, we're in Esther, chapters 7 through 10. And question 2 is, how do things begin to turn around for Mordecai and Esther in chapter 8? And the verse that stood out to me was 8, let's see, what did I write down? 16 and 17. And I'll read those, and you guys let me know what you think. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor, and in every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and his edict reached, there was gladness and joy among the Jews, a feast and a holiday. And many from the peoples of the country declared themselves Jews, for fear of the Jews had fallen on them. So not only do we see like these descriptors that there was joy and gladness, which is something we have not heard about up until this point. It's been very much like mourning and sadness and fear. But now they're saying there's joy and gladness. And so that's a total, what's the word I'm trying to think? Like reversal of what's been going on. And so to summarize, the king, you know, when he finds out, and I love this, that Haman like freaks out so bad. He's falling all over the place. He falls on the couch and the king comes back in and he's like, is Haman gonna even attack the queen right here in front of me? And I just think that's funny. I don't know. Maybe it's a sick sense of humor, I don't know, but I just think that's a funny image there, that Haman, he was so flustered. He was so like beside himself, just could not believe that all of his plans had gone completely haywire. But then the king has Haman hanged, if that's the right word, hanged on the gallows that Haman built for Mordecai. And not only that, but the king reverses the edict that he had released before, saying that the Jews will not be killed. And so that's where we are here. There's joy and gladness. But I also think it stands out to me, this verse that says, or this part of the verse that says, and many from the people of the country declared themselves Jews, for fear of the Jews had fallen on them. And so, things have really turned around. Not only is everyone planning to kill the Jews, now some people are pretending to be Jews because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them. So just the tables have really turned here. Let's see. Marianne says, Ahasuerus gives Queen Esther house of Haman. Yeah. All the trust the king had bestowed on Haman is now imparted on Mordecai. Out of joy for salvation, the Jews' numbers increase. However, the increase was also due to fear after observing Haman's fate. And you know what? That just reminded me of a verse in Jude. Oh man, I just lost my bookmark. That reminded me of a verse in Jude, and you guys may know what I'm talking about while I'm turning there. I want to read it. Because Marianne said, you know, some people switched over for joy, and some people were converted for fear. And there's a verse in Jude. Let's see if I can find it. Stand by. Jude's very short. I hope I don't have to read it. The whole thing, though, too. Okay, verse 23. Save others by snatching them out of the fire. To others show mercy with fear, hating even the garment stained by the flesh. It just made me think about that. That isn't that true for so many of us in our salvation, that some of us come to the Lord, maybe we're rescued just in time, like the Jews were here. But others, we've just been shown great mercy, and others we've been saved, maybe because of fear. And that's okay. However we come to the Lord, that's our story. And so that just reminded me of that. So things have really turned around for Esther and Mordecai here. Just to summarize, and Marianne's comment, good morning, Mama, does a great job of summarizing it as well. Haman's killed. Esther's given the house of Haman. The decree to kill the Jews was revoked, and Mordecai was promoted. So, just a really good chapter here for the Jews. And so, what this leads to is that the Jews decide, Mordecai and Esther really, they decide we want to celebrate this from now on forever. You know, we're going to remember this day, this time in our lives always, when we were rescued, when we were supposed to die but we didn't. Instead, we were given power. And man, just saying those words, isn't that representative? We've talked about how in every single book of the Bible, this is going back to how we study the Bible, we've talked about how in every single book there's a story of a fall, redemption, and man, I always forget the last one. Let me look it up. I do this every time. The fall, redemption, and restoration. There's always that story. And the greatest, the overarching one is the fall of man, the redemption that Jesus gave us on the cross, and the restoration that he gives us in new life in him. But we see that in a mini version in every book of the Bible. And here we are in Esther seeing kind of the same thing, that there's this fall of the Jews once again, a fall into maybe Haman's hands, if you will, into the enemy's hands. And then there's redemption brought by Mordecai and Esther. And now there's this restoration of not only are we safe, but there are people who want to join in with us. And we want to celebrate this forever. And so that's really the purpose of this book, is to tell the story of how the Feast of Purim was established. And that's what we see in the end of chapter 9. And, well, the end of chapter 9 is that this Feast of Purim is established. And so let me just read, I'm going to start with verse 20. We'll start with verse 20 because this is the part that talks about Purim. And so my question, if you want to be putting it in the comments while I read, was why was it important to the Jews to celebrate Purim? We kind of talked about that. And how can we relate to this celebration? And Mordecai recorded these things and sent letters to all the Jews who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, obliging them to keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and also the 15th day of the same, year by year. Verse 22 of chapter 9, as the days on which the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month that had been turned from them from sorrow into gladness, and from mourning into a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, days for sending gifts of food to one another and gifts to the poor. Verse 23, so the Jews accepted what they had started to do and what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast that is, cast lots to crush and destroy them. But when it came before the king, he gave orders in writing that his evil plan that he had devised against the Jews should return on his own head, and that his son should be hanged on the gallows. Therefore they called these days Purim, after the term Pur. Therefore, because of all that was written in this letter, and of what they had faced in this matter, and of what had happened to them, the Jews firmly obligated themselves and their offspring, and all who joined them, that without fail they would keep these 2 days according to what was written, at the time appointed every year. And these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, in every clan, province, and city, and that these days of Purim should never fall into disuse among the Jews, nor should the commemoration of these days cease among their descendants. Oh, so a lot of reading to say that Purim comes from the word pur, which is casting lots, which is what Haman did, and we talked about that a couple weeks ago, to determine the day that he would kill all the Jews, which turned out to be a day of their redemption. And so, why was it important to the Jews to celebrate Purim? It tells us right here in these verses, it was a day of commemoration, a day to remember what had happened, how they had been delivered, and what had happened to their enemies. And Marianne sent me a video this week about Purim and why it's still celebrated today, and how this book is a interesting book of the Bible in that it doesn't mention God, yet you see evidence of his work throughout the entire book. And it talked about celebrating how Purim is a different kind of celebration because it celebrates the work that man and God can do together. And I like that thought, that we get to be a part. We get to be a part of God's plan, and we get to be a part of what God is doing, and that's how they celebrate Purim. And so my question was, how can we relate to this celebration? You know, because I don't know if any of you are. I'm not a Jew. I don't celebrate the feasts and all of those things. But this can still be meaningful to me. And so I thought of a couple of things, how I can relate to it. First of all, what I just said, what I got from the video that I had watched this week, that we can celebrate how God wants to use us as part of his plan, that we get to be a part, that we get to work alongside him, work with him in accomplishing his plan for his people. So we can celebrate that. But also think about, is there a day that I celebrate? Is there a day that I celebrate what God has done for me and my redemption? And absolutely, I remember the day that I was baptized when I was a kid, and it was, honestly, I don't know the day exactly. It was in October because my granddad was a pastor, and he had pastored this home mission in his backyard in a little cabin. And but when I was 8 years old, we built the new church, and it's the church where my husband pastors now. And I was me and my sister and some of my cousins, we were the first ones to be baptized in the new church. We had been waiting. I was 8 years old. I don't remember the exact day, but I do remember the exact day, and I think about it every year, that I was filled with the Spirit for the first time. And that was December 26th. It was a Wednesday night service. It was Wednesday night Bible study. And I was 8 years old. And I will never forget that. And I celebrate every year. I think about it every year. The day that Jesus filled me with his Spirit. And so I think we can relate to the celebration of Purim in that we can think about the days that God has redeemed us. And you know, more than just our salvation, there are so many other days when he has redeemed us. So maybe in the comments, I think it would be really cool. See, I got a comment that you lost me. Maybe I'll come back. In a second. Let's see. So I want to know about the day that you got saved. Do you remember? Do you know the date? Do you know how old you were? Do you know where you were when you gave your life to God. I want to see those dates on there. I love hearing those stories. See, Marianne says, 2 ordinary people, Esther and Mordecai, are the heroes with God, working his plan behind the scenes. Just as it is today, we may not see God center stage, but he is present, working in our lives. It is reason to celebrate, and we need to make certain we reserve our together time for God. Yes. Makes me think about a song we sing at church, Waymaker. I think it comes on the radio too. And there's a part of the song that says, even when I can't see it, he's working. And also that he works just in our ordinary days when we're going about our lives, doing our own thing, that God is still using us. And that's really cool. That's really cool to think about. So, let's see, we just had one more question, and it doesn't really flow here, but we'll just tag it on the end because chapter 10 is very short, just 3 verses, but it talks about Mordecai and how in my little subtitle on mine actually says the greatness of Mordecai. So my question just was, how was Mordecai's response to power different than Haman's? And we've talked a lot about Haman, so let's not talk about him anymore. We know. But what was Mordecai's response to power? I know I highlighted one line in here that stood out to me, and it was the very last line I'll just read verse 3. For Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Ahasuerus, and he was great among the Jews and popular with the multitude of his brothers. For he sought the welfare of his people and spoke peace to all his people. So I think that's how Mordecai was different than Haman. He sought the welfare of his people and he spoke peace. And that teaches us a lot about being a leader. Being a good leader is looking out for the welfare of others and speaking peace. And anybody can be a leader. Our school, we're a leader in me school. And so we teach our kids that everyone is a leader. And so that's kind of seeped into just like the hardwire of my life too, of who I am, that I believe everyone can be a leader. And so I'm saying that to you ladies this morning, that you guys are leaders. You're leaders in your families, in your churches, and in your communities. And how can you be a good leader? Look out for the welfare of others and speak peace. And we need that more than ever in our world right now. We need to hear about people. We need to see people who are looking out for the welfare of others and who are speaking peace. And so I guess as we close down Bible study today, that's my challenge to you, is to leave this Bible study this week determining to look out for the welfare of others, but most of all determining to speak peace, because I think a lot of us already look out for the welfare of others. Can we always do better? Absolutely. But as mothers and wives and whatever your role is in your life, I think women naturally are looking out for others. Maybe not everybody, but we've got to do better about speaking peace because our world needs that right now. And that's, we always come back to the questions, what do we learn about God and what do we learn about ourselves? And so what I'm learning today about myself is that I need to look at the example of Mordecai and say that I need to look after the welfare of people and to speak peace. Okay. I'm so thankful that you guys joined me this morning. It was a good Bible study. I loved studying Esther with you. I'm kind of sad to see it come to an end, but I already know what I want to do next week. So, I will, those of you who are with me on the video right now and come back for the replay, you get the early sneak peek because who knows when I'll get it posted. Sometimes I'm like really good and do it the next day. Sometimes it takes me forever. I'm like Friday night, like whoops. But next Saturday, Proverbs 31, we're talking about the Proverbs 31 woman next Saturday. And I'm so excited. I hope to be able to find something, dig out something maybe that we haven't heard before. And that's my challenge to you this week too. Find something about the Proverbs 31 woman that you've never heard before. Find something new to bring to us. And if you can't find something new, just find something that just really resonates in your heart. And so we're looking at Proverbs chapter 31 next week, and I can't wait to see you. You guys have a great 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. I'll see you next week.